Welcome back to Firestorm Games. In this video we'll be taking a look inside the new 2-player starter set for Age of Sigmar, which is of course Feast of Bones. This box set not only gives you a good basis for a destruction and a death army, but also contains some brand new miniatures in the form of the Ossiarch Bone Reapers and the new Ogre Tyrant, which is what we'll be focusing on in this video. Let's begin with the Bone Reapers, so called because they literally reap the bones from the inhabitants of the mortal realms in order to sustain and grow their ranks. This is either performed as a willing donation or will also be taken at bony spear point. Keeping an eye on this tithe is our first new miniature, Warhammer, who is a named character. This rather unusual fellow sports the usual trappings of an undead hero: candles, skulls, the warped faces of tortured souls, and of course half a huge stone coffin. Whilst this unusual funeral attire doesn't seem to slow Warhammer down performing his duties, it sadly doesn't offer him much in defensive capabilities either. Not that he needs any, however. Armed with a fairly mediocre array of weapons, his true strength lies in his ability to KO enemy characters on a single roll of a 5+. On his own though, Warhammer won't last long, which is why it's best to support him with some of the Bone Reaper's rank and file troops. The Mortek Guard. On the surface, these guys may just look like the typical skeleton minions that all undead armies seem to use, but in reality, they're much more. Not only are they tougher, but they also dish out even more and even deadlier attacks. This is mainly because they're not simply reanimated corpses, they are instead the souls of warriors implanted into bone constructs, essentially a dark reflection of how Sigmar creates his Stormcasts. This is evident in how they look. They're much chunkier than the lowly skeleton warrior and wear purpose-built armour and weapons, rather than the rusted hand-me-downs from some long-dead warrior. The Mortek Guard all carry a shield and can either be equipped with a sword or a spear, with 1 in every 10 guard being able to be armed with a 2-handed weapon instead. Overall, their appearance has an unusual mix of the old Tomb King miniatures with the segmented armour and helmets having some Eastern influences. These stylings are continued into the other new kits that we find inside Feast of Bones, the Necropolis Stalkers, which can also be assembled as the Immortus Guard instead. This dual kit features some larger bone constructs which stand double the height of a regular Mortek Guard. These two options are built from a shared frame and are differentiated by their different weapon and head choices. The Necropolis Stalkers that I'm building here carry a blade in each of their 4 arms, as well as having 4 faces on their heads. This represents how the Stalkers are built from 4 souls, each specialising in a different style of combat. As the situation requires it, the relevant soul can take control and their head will rotate accordingly. Whilst having the same 4 arms, the other option in this kit, the Immortus Guard, instead carry a halberd in 2 of their arms and a large shield in the other. Additionally, instead of 4-faced head, they wear those same samurai-inspired helmets. These two kits operate on 2 different sides of the combat spectrum. The Stalkers are much more offensive, as is reflected by their 4 large weapons they carry. Their abilities allow them to switch to a defensive stance if needed, but most of their rules direct them towards being your army's meat grinders. The Immortus Guard, on the other hand, carry a defensive role in your force. With their extra armour and large shields, it's easy to see why. These guys are tough. They can absorb hits with a 3+ save and can also take on wounds applied to characters within 3 inches of them. But that's not to say they can't dish out damage too, with their Rend stat of -2 making them particularly useful against tougher foes. And so, that concludes all the new Ossiarch Bone Reapers units that we get in this set. However, Feast of Bones does also include 2 Morghast as well, which whilst they've been out for a while now, it's really cool to see how their style has been broadened into an entire army. So the Ossiarch Bone Reapers in general occupy that spot where Tomb Kings used to sit. A lot of their stylings bear some resemblance to the Desert Dwellers of old, but they're not complete rip-offs. They are something new, and it's great to see the Death faction finally getting a more elite force rather than the usual hordes of cheap undead. So the other half of Feast for Bones furnishes us with an army to play against our Bone Reapers. These consist of a 6-strong unit of Gluttons, 2 Lead Vultures and an Iron Blaster, all of which are existing kits. However, we do have a single new addition to our Ogre Mawtribes faction in the form of the new Plastic Tyrant. As a unit, this guy has been around since the first Ogre Kingdoms book and is the de facto leader of your Mawtribe. He's always been the biggest, toughest ogre around, but now he has access to a whole bunch of devastating weaponry and new abilities. Anyone looking to get close to your tyrant will have to fend off a couple of shots from his brace of ogre pistols, which, let's face it, would be small cannons in the hands of regular humans. If you manage to get through the hail of shot, then you're greeted by the 3 remaining weapons, a Thunder Mace, a Beast Skewer Glaive, and finally a Gulping Bite. The Thunder Hammer will make light work of tougher opponents and has the ability to deal even more mortal wounds to units. The Beast Skewer, on the other hand, quite literally, is much more suited to enemy heroes or monsters, as its D3 damage characteristic is boosted to D6 when facing off against them. Overall, the Tyrant looks big and tough, which is great because these are the defining characteristics of a Tyrant. He fits in nicely among your other ogres while still being easy to differentiate from the rank and file by standing taller, having heavier armour, and proudly displaying his trophies about his person. So if you're looking to get started with either the Osiark Bone Reapers or the Ogre Maw Tribes, then Feast of Bones is a great choice. If you can split the box with a friend, you will find yourself having savings of around about a third of the price of buying all the items individually. Plus, it means you get your hands on these new kits a little earlier. But if you're looking to save even more money, you'll be able to save yourself at least 10% off that RRP of the box set itself by checking out the Firestorm Games webstore, which you can find a link to in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave your comments and subscribe to be kept up to date with all of our future videos. And so we should say a big thank you for watching this video, and we hope to see you again on Firestorm Games.